And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking McLaren. We are talking dominance. No, I don't think they're going to be as dominant as the RBs. Sorry, Red Bulls, not RBs. That's a completely different team. Were in 22 and 23. However, McLaren have got some people worried, particularly Red Bull. And here's the article that inspired today's video. So McLaren's 1 second lap dominance, according to Marco, yes, Helmut Marco, the flame of humility and truth. But he said it's the lap dominance is alien to Verstappen. Now, McLaren's recent supremacy doesn't bode well for Red Bull title prospects, apparently. So the advisor, he's worried that McLaren, their advantage, is quoted, is going to be a whole new world, with reigning champion equally astonished. So Norris, as we know, he did a very tidy job in Singapore, out qualifying Verstappen in the end by 2/10, but winning by a 21 second margin, a gap that had been as high as 29 seconds, but Lando seemingly trying to do his best to lose the race a couple of times. But this marked the continuation of what is now, since the Spanish Grand Prix, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 race winless one, Jonathan Was, an 8 race winless run drought for Red Bull's own Max Verstappen. He's only had 1 pole position and 3 podium finishes in that period of time. No, he's suddenly not turned into Sergio Perez. His car is not as quick. And Verstappen and Marco had according to this, a long conversation on the phone last week on Tuesday, where Red Bull's struggles to McLaren were brought up. And asked in the interview, and this is motorsport.com's sister publication, Formula1.de, what his driver told him, Marco said, well, that Lando's dominance is alien, especially on medium tyres. He took 9/10 to 1 second of a lap from us. Even if our car had been, let's say, optimised, he couldn't have driven those times on the medium. And we're all wondering how he did it. When Norris takes 9/10 to 1 second per lap from us, it's a whole new world, Marco said. And don't forget, in the second stint, Charles Leclerc was just as fast as Lando, or almost a bit faster. So for us, I would almost say that second place was like a victory. And to be fair, let's be honest, Max Verstappen did do a very impressive job at the Singapore Grand Prix. I think he got the absolute maximum out of that Red Bull and his team and his own ability. Shy of Lando Norris making maybe a bigger mistake. But McLaren built its success form on continuity, the article says. They opted to keep the same floor since Miami, and that's something that even Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull have changed and potentially regretted it. In May, Red Bull brought a subtle update of its own to the Baku and Marina Bay rounds. It's a step in the right direction, but it's not enough, Marco said. And he's talking about this Red Bull upgraded floor. He said they worked very hard, gained certain insights. It wasn't a completely new floor, but parts of it were new. So maybe slightly redesigned, maybe. And he went on to say, but I think the deciding factor will be performance in Austin. There are a lot of things coming. Christian Horner has described the Monza race as the low point for Red Bull after Verstappen finished, 38 seconds behind Lando Norris, and that was a wake-up call. Sorry, race winner Leclerc, not Lando Norris, my apologies. It was the worst race since, I don't know, I can't remember when we got it wrong in terms of strategy, pit stop, speed and everything, he said. But we know we're on the right track now. The car needs to have a wider operating window, and that's something that Red Bull were very good at in 22 and 23. Something that Mercedes have not been good at all, bearing maybe like that build up to the summer break. They were, and then they weren't. But not one where relatively small changes, the temperature's difference of 6 or 7 degrees can affect performance. And that's exactly what a lot of teams, where the race surfaces, even the curbs, even the temperature, and that's something Lewis Hamilton has said, and Toto Wolff have come out about Mercedes. When the temperature is not just right, it really seems to affect their car. But it doesn't really affect McLaren at the moment. And they got more speed and also more barriers so that Max can attack. Now Red Bull are 41 points away from McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, having scored 119 fewer points in the last 6 rounds. That's Red Bull. In no small part thanks to Sergio Perez. failing to finish a single race in the top 5 since the Miami event. Marco conceded that this battle was likely over with the performance that they currently have. Yep, to be fair to Perez, Baku looked like a potential podium until it wasn't. Blame him or Carlos Sainz what you will. Either way, Perez did have the power to avoid that. He didn't. To avoid that with Sainz, whether you want to say Sainz turned in to him or not. But still, the power of finishing that race, I still think, not that I'm blaming him 100%, but it was still in Perez's hands. But he said, but I'm optimistic that if Max wins races again, Sergio can achieve a third or fourth place. Let's hope he does. I hope he does, but it's looking doubtful, isn't it? Then things will look different again, he added, but the focus is primarily... So Red Bull have kind of admitted they've thrown away that Constructors and they're really focusing on that Drivers' Championship. And he said, if I believe that, and I believe that's only possible if Max wins at least 2 more races, then it will also look a bit more promising in the Constructors' Champ. Promising, yeah, promising. But why were McLaren so dominant in Singapore? This is the Autosport article. Claiming that they were in a class of their own. But why? One weekend from Baku, where Oscar Piastri had a fight tooth and nail from Charles Leclerc, they had quite an easy win. Lando Norris, as we own. I wouldn't say he was in a class of his own in qualifying, but he did what everyone expected him to do. And then he held a comfortable lead early on. In the words of Christian Horner, he was taking the PISS when he upped the speed to pull almost 25 seconds away from Max. Now, McLaren had brought no upgrades to Singapore, and that's going to really scare a few people. They had a revised beam wing from the outside, the turnaround in just 7 days, and it does not appear to have an obvious explanation. But the key to understanding what happened is that F1's top challengers have their strengths and weaknesses. They said, we know Mercedes is better at high-speed tracks, especially if it's cool. For example, Silverstone, Belgium. Austria, they weren't too bad. Yes, I know George Russell won, but that was thanks to Max Verstappen and Lando Norris having it to do. Now, Ferrari had good speed and loves slow, short corners, while Red Bull probably remains king in terms of overall low drag and aero speed efficiency. But what Singapore proved, they said, especially after what we saw at Zandvoort, is that McLaren is clear of everyone when it comes to maximum downforce circuits. And Andrea Stella, the performance picture of Singapore, was all about how well the McLaren car, as in the MCL38, performs at downforce levels required at Marina Bay. And he said, I think if I look at previous races as this high level of downforce, we seem to be very competitive. He said when asked about Lando Norris. And he went, so I think it might have to do more with the levels of downforce than with the fact that we may be chipping away at getting some more out of the car. Stella added, I think the car has been strong in this configuration. I always make examples of Hungary and Zandvoort. Even Hungary was a relatively dominant victory in itself, like Zandvoort and this one. So I think at the moment it's more than the car in this configuration. I think it has the better aerodynamic efficiency across the grid. But there we go. And at low drag, I think the Ferrari Red Bull is much more comparable to our car. But Red Bull, fear not, Red Bull fans, because there is an upgrade coming. And that's what they're pinning Verstappen's title hopes on. So and it's coming in Austin, apparently. They're preparing for the United States Grand Prix and can only be of an aerodynamic nature with these upgrades. It's simply not possible in the short time available before Austin to introduce a fundamental design changes to the cooling system, suspension. For example, the strong limits imposed by the budget cap, and also Sergio Perez having a lot of crashes. Now, the overarching objective pursued by the team, it says, and this is from RacingNews365.com, has been identified was simply to mitigate them and to allow Max and Sergio to regain feeling and confidence. And that does stand for absolute big time. If you remember, Lewis Hamilton nearly won the American Grand Prix, albeit, yes, with an illegal car just. But the reason why is the upgrades allowed him to feel more confident with the back end. And when a driver feels more confident, they're faster in qualifying. They're faster in the race. They are prepared to take more risks to be fast because they know either they can catch the car or the car can do it. And when it's the opposite, they're chasing the car, they're kind of like the car's driving them rather than the other way around. So Red Bull having their fingers crossed on what will be a new upgrade. We don't exactly know. Could be rumoured a new front wing, a new rear wing potentially, but it's going to be interesting come Austin. I'm sure we'll be talking about it. So before we go, I just thought we'd have a quick look at this Reddit, I love Reddit, don't you? About Red Bull's dominance fading to McLaren. Need a breakdown of what's changed this season. And this guy says, I've been an avid fan for a while, but I don't always get the time to follow all the technical details of the car developments week by week. I've noticed Red Bull started the season super strong, but it feels like McLaren have been giving them a run for their money. For someone like me who doesn't follow every technical update, can anyone help break down what's been happening? Someone's put, if you look at the numbers, the Red Bulls are not going slower. This is K2 Jackal. They're actually faster than last year. McLaren took a mighty leap forward this spring. Once again, the data tells us this is true. And hats off to McLaren. They've done an outstanding job of developing the car. It's quite, to be fair, for Reddit, it's fairly sensible. Oh no. I need to sign up. I can't. The real thing is, it's amazing, is the upgrades are not really track specific. They seem to be work on every track / corner, it would appear. They put McLaren's new wind tunnel must be really good. And this is the first year they've properly been able to use it. And another guy says, ice cream person number 9. Apparently there are 8 of them until this guy came into Reddit. But honestly, feels like what Mercedes and most other teams went through at the beginning of the reg change is what Red Bull is going through now. They're going to have to survive this year and possibly next year. Someone's put K Darkrai. Is that Pokemon? It's down to how every update McLaren have bought has worked perfectly, improved the car as intended. That was not the case for Red Bull and Ferrari. And to be fair, we can pretty much say Mercedes. Reddit experts, yes, Reddit experts also say Red Bull design update looking kind of similar to McLaren, similar to last year. Mercedes didn't help. I think RBR got too ambitious with the RB20 concept, and that's something that a lot of people are saying. They introduced a lot of engineering complexity, which ultimately came back to bite them. That's interesting. RBR at the moment looks like an MMO player who is mix and matching different skill trees, which does give damage and hit point boost on paper, but finds itself outmatched in a PvP against McLaren, who found a solid class build that has been carefully theory crafted. Wow. Todd's Cheeseburgers. Well, cheeseburgers can talk apparently in 2024. Amazing how 18 months McLaren were awful and the slowest cars on the grid. Absolutely. This guy says, Black Death _663. Also an avid fan, having watched every race and kept up to date with the news. McLaren had big upgrades during the spring which worked, but couldn't tell you what was that. And they've had similar cars that were fast would turn up to a track and suddenly be nowhere. On the technical side, these regs have been, well, he's claiming they've been boring. Yeah, I think there we go. I just thought that was fairly interesting. So McLaren's 1 second lap, I don't think it's 1 second lap on the medium tyres. It may have been, but overall, I don't quite think it's 1 second a lap. However, I completely understand why Red Bull and others are a bit wary, but it bodes well for the championship, doesn't it? I mean, yes, Lando Norris has a very outside chance of winning the championship, but still, it makes it exciting. The constructors, well, that could be between Red Bull, Ferrari, and of course, McLaren. If you liked what you saw, please give us a like. It makes me happy. It makes it all worth it. Just clicking that like button. Give us a subscribe. If you're not, lots of you are watching, but you're not subscribed. If you can, that would be cool. And hit that notification button if you are subscribed, if you do not want to miss another video. So, on that, please stay safe and speak to you next time. Thank you very much. And if you made it to the end, you're an F1 World Champion in our eyes.